For the best in news, sports, and great entertainment, tune to the #1 television network, NBC.
These 10 people are all doctors, and their mother is one of these 3 women. Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is Ruth Guiden.
Number 2.
My name is Ruth Guiden.
Number 3.
My name is Ruth Guiden.
Only one of these people is the real Ruth Guiden, and is the only one sworn to tell the truth. Now let's meet our panel. Actor and raconteur, Orson Bean. Co-star of Golden Girls, Betty White. Co-star of Night Court, Richard Moll. And to tell the truth's very own, Kitty Carlisle. Here's the host of To Tell the Truth, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, Burton. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our show. And good morning, panel.
Good morning, good morning.
Our first story today is going to make you all feel good. So let's get right to it. It's the story represented by these 3 ladies, our first team of challengers, all 3 of whom claim to be Ruth Guiden. Here is her story. Please read along with me. I, Ruth Guiden, have a remarkable family. I can say yes 11 times when asked the question, is there a doctor in the house? My husband is a doctor. 9 of my 10 children are practicing doctors, and the 10th is in medical school. In 1946, my husband Arthur, already a doctor, was stricken by polio and paralyzed. It ended his career as a surgeon, but not as a father. Despite his handicap, or perhaps because of it, my husband is a published researcher and an inventor. He designed the prototype of the modern motorized wheelchair. I know this sounds as if I'm blowing my husband's horn, but he is a remarkable man. And as for me, I'm content being the good woman behind them all. Signed, Ruth Guiden. We'll find out more about this mother of modern medicine right after this break.
Bundle up. Buzzer's Betty White Christmas will be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 very sweet ladies, panelists, all claiming to be Ruth Guiden, a woman with a remarkable family of doctors. So let's start the questioning with Kitty.
It's very appropriate because my daughter's a doctor, my father was a doctor, and because I know how difficult it is financially to get them through medical school, number 1, how did you get 11 children through medical school?
10 children.
10.
10. Yes. My husband is a writer and a researcher.
Thank you.
And he produced a medical textbook.
But number 2, financially, it must have been a terrible burden. Or do they all get scholarships?
Well, that helped. There were grants, scholarships, and package deals from the schools. But with the medical books that my husband wrote, it brought in quite a bit of money.
Thank you. Number 3, tell me about the wheelchair. How did he invent this? It's a wonderful, beneficial thing for mankind.
Well, he invented this after he got back to Oxford, Mississippi from Warm Springs, where he'd been sent for rehabilitation. It operates on the joystick principle.
Thank you. It's a wonderful thing.
Richard?
Yes, number 1, what are the colleges your kids attend or have attended?
4 of them were at Harvard. 1 was at University of Michigan Medical School, 1 at Cornell Med, and there were several who went to...
Thank you very much. Number 2, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm very rude sometimes. What kind of... Yes, that's right. What kind of therapy did your husband have when he had polio? What do they have? What sort of therapy?
Well, that was in Warm Springs, Georgia.
And what type of fuel do they use in the motor on that motorized wheelchair?
Well, it's electric.
Afraid you were going to say that.
Betty?
Number 3, of all those 10, did they all want to always be doctors, or was there any time that 1 or more of them wanted to do something else?
Well, they were physics and chemistry majors, mainly, in undergraduate school, and I think there was quite a a decision as to which way they should go.
Number one, this motorized wheelchair, did your husband patent it and sell it afterwards?
It is patented, but the royalties have gone to charity.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you.
Orson?
Number 2, now, do you ever get sick?
I do.
Well, yeah, you get free care, right?
Over.
Overcare. Number 3, what's your explanation for this phenomenon? Why didn't one of them rebel and become, God forbid, a lawyer?
God forbid.
God forbid is right.
I think it's their father's influence.
Number 1, does any of them specialize? Or
Yes.
What are some of the different specialties?
We have an ophthalmologist, we have a neurologist.
Mercy.
We have a double-boarded pediatrician and a dermatologist.
I think that's wonderful. You got a baby with a skin
All right,
problem?
there's the signal. Whoever the real Ruth Guiden is, she should be in the Guinness Book of Records, I think. But now, panelists, it's time for you to cast your votes for number 1, number 2, or number 3. And our team of challengers will receive $500 in cash for each incorrect vote with a guarantee of $1,000. And if our panel is fooled completely, the team will receive $3,000. Kitty, who did you vote for?
Well, I thought it was number 3 because she really had everything down pat, chemistry and so forth. But number 2 seemed to be coaching the other ones. And anyway, I seem to be stuck on number 2 today, so I voted for number 2.
Number 2 had an aura of authority about her. Richard, who did you vote for?
Well, I thought it was number 3, too. I'm just crazy about that dress you're wearing. I don't know what it is. That's the best thing. It brings out your eyes very nicely. So I figured, vote for number 3. She deserves it.
Betty?
I've learned the hard way on this show that not to go by my first impression. And watching them when they were standing up at the top, number 3 just didn't move a muscle. She was being so quiet and so. But I had to vote for her.
Are you trying to say that number 3 was asleep?
No, she wasn't. By a long shot.
Who did you
I don't
vote
think
for?
she had time to sleep if it is number 3.
Number 3 has wonderful eyes, but I voted for number 1 because she rattled off those colleges and then she rattled off those specialties, and I got the impression if I would have asked her to name the 5 major intestines, she would have told me that, too.
5 major intestines?
Well, the minor ones, whatever you like.
We're glad Orson is not Dr. Bean today. All right, let's review the voting. Number 1, you managed to convince Orson. Number 2, you convinced Kitty. And number 3, you got Betty and Richard's votes. So it's time now to find out who the real mother of 10 is. Will the real Ruth Guiden please stand up? Number 3. Mrs. Guiden, we'll get back to you in a moment. First, let's find out who our imposters really are. Number 1, you got a vote. Tell us who you are and what you do, please.
Yes, my name is Claire Boyko, and I'm a playwright. I translate Shakespeare into plain English.
Into plain English, all right. Number 2, you received a vote as well. Who are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Gladys Jelinas, and I work in the complaint department at Sears.
At Sears, all right. Well, we had 2 incorrect votes at $500 a vote, and so the team will receive $1,000. Thank you very much for being here. Well, you were speaking in such glowing terms about your husband, and he is standing behind you now. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Arthur Guiden. Doctor, you've had a remarkable life. You've been an inventor, you're a researcher, a doctor, a family of 10 doctors out there. Which part of that life has been the most exciting for you?
The most exciting has been the research.
The research part?
And the family. No, the family would be first.
All right. Well, here's another picture of your 10 children. Perhaps you can run down the list and tell us what the specialties are for each of your children.
Well, David is an ophthalmologist. Robert is a cardiac surgeon. John is an internist. Stephen is a cardiac surgeon. Catherine is an internist. Jean is a rheumatologist. Douglas is an anesthesiologist. James is an orthopedic surgeon. Thomas is an anesthesiologist. And Gregory is in medical school.
Well, it's a sensational family. Thank you so much for being with us on To Tell the Truth. You were terrific. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you all to take a look at this.
This morning's SR-71 flight is in the system now. We can transmit anytime you're ready.
We'll be right back with the man who designed this plane following these messages. We're back, and it's time to meet our next team of challengers.
Number 1, what is your name, please?
My name is Ben Rich.
Number 2.
My name is Ben Rich.
Number 3.
My name is Ben Rich.
Panel, it's up to you to locate the real Ben Rich, and here is his story. I, Ben Rich, am the designer of the world's fastest airplane, the SR-71 Blackbird. It holds 7 world records, including flying from New York to London in under 2 hours. Our team also engineered the F-117 Stealth Fighter, the most devastating combat plane on Earth. The Stealth is now in the Persian Gulf supporting our troops. Our famous Skunk Works engineering team was organized by Clarence Kelly Johnson after World War II. I'm proud to follow in the footsteps of one of America's aeronautical pioneers. We also designed commercial aircraft and missile systems. But at this moment, we are most proud of our stealth fighters, which have done a hell of a job in the Gulf. Signed, Ben Rich. All right, Orson, we'll start the questioning with you.
Number 1, now, are your stealth planes being used for low-flying activity over there?
No, they're not. We retired the SR-71.
Why, number 1?
Because Congress felt that it was too expensive to manufacture.
Ah, now I guess they're kicking themselves. Number 2, what is it that those English guys are flying so low over there and having a little trouble with?
They fly Tornados.
And that's very dangerous, isn't it?
It's more dangerous when you fly at low altitude.
Number 3, is it?
Oh, time's up, Betty.
Number 2, where did the term the Skunk Works come from?
The Skunk Works came from a Little Abner comic strip, and where they were brewing things, Kickapoo juice.
Kickapoo joy juice.
Kickapoo joy juice. And then they always wanted to know what Kelly Johnson was doing under that tent when he was developing the P-80. What was Kelly Johnson brewing? And they called it the Skunk Works.
Number 1, this was developed secretly, was it not?
Yes, it was.
And how difficult is it to test such a top secret machine and not have it leak out?
We were functioning under very tight security, mostly doing night flying.
Which is where so much of the activity is today.
Richard?
Yes, I thought they called it Skunk Works because none of the engineers took a bath or something. I had no idea. What is the number 2? What is the stealth covered with? What's the material on it?
It's a carbon thing. I can't really go in detail because it would be classified.
Okay. Number 3. You're looking lonely over there. I'm going to ask you a question. What are the stealth? What are they hitting in the Gulf? What targets are they hitting? These fighters?
They're certainly aiming for the Scud targets primarily.
Number 1. I hate that when that
Richard
happens.
thought he was on to something there. Kitty?
Number 3, would you finish about what they're trying to hit?
Oh, I was going to say the different caverns where so much of their material and their airplanes are being stored.
Thank you. Number 1, is there another reason that the stealth was retired aside from financial problems?
No, I'm sorry, I'll correct myself. I thought you were relating to the SR-71, which was retired.
The Blackbird is retired?
Yes.
And number 2, how many people can the stealth hold?
Can only hold 1 person.
Oh, just 1 person all by himself?
Yes, indeed, all by himself. And now each of you will have to perform by yourselves as you vote for number 1, number 2, or number 3. We're about to find out who the real Ben Rich is. Kitty, who did you vote for?
I'm going to vote for number 1 because he was very honest, and I think maybe he just didn't understand the question right away, and he fixed it up and explained that the stealth has not been retired.
You feel he might have been a little nervous in
Yes,
responding
that's
the
right.
first time around. Richard?
I don't know. When he said his name was Ben Rich, number 2, I believed the man, and I wanted to believe him all through this whole thing, and now he's probably made a big sucker out of me. Number 2.
Betty?
I should know better. The kiss of death is to be sure, and in my heart, I am so sure because during World War II, I did a lot of research among our Air Force, and
And the Army, and the Marines, the Navy.
Primarily the Air Force. I must admit I was loyal to the entire Air Force. So in my heart, there's a certain familiarity to not familiarity, but number 2.
Number 1 told a good story for Betty's purposes. Orson?
Off we go into the wild blue yawn. I know I could get it with that one. I voted for number 1, even though he doesn't look like a Ben. I don't know. Number 2 looks like a Ben. Number 3 looks like a Melvin. Number 1 looks like, I don't know, like Harry.
Doesn't look like a Ben, but you voted for him.
I voted for him anyway.
All right, let's review the voting. Number 1, you were most convincing. You picked up 3 votes. Number 2, you got 1 vote only. So it's time now to find out who our real man of stealth is. Will the real Ben Rich please stand up? All right. Ben, I'm one of those people in show business and the political scene who was dying to get a ride on the SR-71. I almost had one in Okinawa. Did you ever get to fly in it?
No, I was claustrophobic, and I couldn't sit in the pressure suit.
Let's find out about our imposters today. Number 1, you earned 3 votes. Who are you, please?
My name is Wally Cannon. I'm with Unilens, and we sell soft bifocal contact lenses.
Number 3, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Don Wazorek, and I'm currently working as a substitute teacher.
Well, there were 3 incorrect votes, gentlemen, at $500 a vote, and that means the team will receive $1,500. And thank you all for being with us today on To Tell the Truth. When we come back, we're going to get to play one-on-one with someone from our studio audience. But first, this.
It's
someone from our studio audience. Burton, who have you got for us today?
Today, Alex, we have Nancy Ishiki from Mountain View, California.
Hello, Nancy. Here's your chance to win some money. I'd like you to meet a gentleman who has 2 stories to tell. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Gene Parrott. Welcome, Gene. Gene is going to tell us 2 stories, Nancy, only one of which is the truth. Now, if you can spot the true story, you'll win $500 in cash. Gene, what's your first story?
I just came back from Saudi Arabia with the great Bob Hope. I write his jokes.
Well, now that may or may not be the truth, Nancy. Let's listen to Gene's second story.
I'll never forget last New Year's Eve. I became a father and a grandfather on the same day.
All righty. Panel, in order to help Nancy win the $500, each of you gets to ask 1 question about each story. Kitty, go first.
Mr. Parrott, does he help you with your jokes, Bob Hope?
Most of the ideas are generated by Bob Hope, and we go from there and hand in some new ones.
Thank you.
Richard?
Mr. Parrott, what does Bob Hope want to do if they put Saddam Hussein's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
He's going to do the same thing he does if they don't put it there, I think. He wants to get this over with.
Betty?
Who were the girls allowed into Saudi Arabia on the Bob Hope tour?
On the Bob Hope tour, the only woman that was allowed into Saudi Arabia was Mrs. Hope. The rest entertained some of the servicemen on the ships in the Persian Gulf, but not in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you.
Orson?
Now, I heard the Saudis were having a wet veil contest, but I want to tell you, now, would you use a bad joke of that? How did you get around the fact that you couldn't do the traditional thing of Hope versus the pretty girl?
The morale was so high, and they were so starved for entertainment. And we put on a good show anyway, that they loved it.
All right, well, now let's get to story number 2, Nancy. The story about this gentleman becoming a father and a grandfather last New Year's Eve. Orson, start us off.
Well, now, if you had been the joke writer, what could you make out of the situation? How did it happen that you became the 2 at once?
You really want to know how it happened?
I never told you about that, did
It was my wife and my youngest daughter, and it made for an interesting New Year's Eve.
Your wife and your youngest?
Betty?
All right.
Were they both born in the same hospital by any chance?
Yes, they were.
Richard?
What were the weights of these 2 bundles of joy?
The grandson was the bigger one. He was 8'1". My daughter was 7 pounds 6 ounces.
Kitty?
Interesting and difficult question. Which one excited you the most?
Well, grandchildren are always more fun, but I think being a father again was like my comeback.
That's a good response. Nancy, you've heard the cross-examination. It's up to you to decide. Is Gene Parrott Bob Hope's comedy writer, or did he become a father and a grandfather on the same day?
Well, he looks really happy, so I'm going to say that he became a father and a grandfather on the same day.
All righty. A lot of people in the audience agree with Nancy. Gene Parrott, what's your true story?
To tell the truth, I am Bob Hope's writer.
Sorry, Nancy, you didn't win the $500. We do have a parting gift for you backstage. And to you, Gene Parrott, we have $1,000 for stumping Nancy. You've related some of your experiences with Bob Hope in a book, a comedy book that's available right now. What's it called?
I have a book out now called Funny Business, and it's a collection of humor for people who work in an office. Everything about the workplace.
Well, God knows we all need humor, especially in the office place.
I believe it, yes.
And other areas, too. Thank you very much, Gene.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back right after this.
A double play of Super Password is next. Keep your ears, eyes, and thesaurus open, and stay tuned.
We're back tomorrow. We'll see you then. So long.
If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great Classic TV content.
Mark Goodson Television Production.
Kitty Carlisle talks about To Tell the Truth.
We had some very funny moments. We had 3 people on who were supposed to be decoy cops. And when the reveal came, Gary Moore said, will the real decoy cop please stand up?
No!
And the second one, he said, well, number 2, will you please stand up and say, what do you do?
My name is Chris Hart, and my mother is the charming panelist, Kitty Carlisle.
Get in on the fun. Watch Game Show Network.